Alcohol has always existed naturally in the living process in plant and animal life. In humans as well, alcohol is naturally present. Measurable amounts of alcohol can be found in the brain, liver, blood, and muscles. The consumption of alcohol reaches so far back in human history, the exact time of discovery is unknown. Most likely, alcohol was discovered by accident, possibly by fermenting fruit. Our ancestors were quick to isolate and improve this new taste. People around the world use practically any fermentable material, including fruits, flowers, berries, tree sap, milk, honey, any substance containing carbohydrates or sugar. In recorded history, one of the earliest mentions of alcohol production is from an Egyptian papyrus dated 3500 BC. Only a few cultures around the world hadn't discovered alcohol, mostly due to geographic isolation. Some of the earliest prescriptions against drinking in excess include dispensing controls in the Code of Hammurabi in 2300 BC. The Egyptian priesthood also warned against drinking in excess. In general, early laws were directed against the consequences of excessive drinking rather than drinking itself. Today, alcohol is widespread as ever, and with alcohol, so follows its problems. Alcohol abuse is significantly tied to traumatic deaths and is implicated in 80% of fires, 64% of suicides, 69% of drownings, 59% of motor vehicle accidents, and 65% of homicides.
I wouldn't be able to give you a frequency, meaning I don't know how many cases a year we get, but we probably get at least during when the university's in session, we probably get one every Friday and Saturday night, and probably another 2 or 3 throughout the week at a minimum. So probably average at least one case a day, although they don't come in every single day. But throughout a year's period, we probably see over 300 cases of alcohol poisoning, if you want to call it that.
How does Montana's drinking problem compare to other states?
I don't know that I could speak as far as statistically. I could just give you a little bit of my personal experience on it because I worked in another state. I was also a police officer in Coeur d'Alene for a few years, so from what I've seen over there and what I've seen over here, I would say it's relatively similar. I mean, we had incidents over there involving minors, young adults, middle-aged people, and elderly people, and we have all of that here. Some of those incidents were criminal, some were non-criminal. So, I would say in my limited experience in the two states, they're pretty close.
Alcohol acts as a depressant and slows down the body. Because alcohol is carried to every cell through blood, all organs can be damaged with excessive drinking. Alcohol causes both temporary and permanent brain injury. The areas that are affected include memory, problem solving, judgment, behavior, insight, understanding of pain and pleasure, coordination, and regulation of body functions. Alcohol causes disturbances in the heart rate. To a person predisposed to a heart condition, this can be fatal. With long-term exposure, alcohol causes 3 types of injuries to the liver: fatty liver disease, alcoholic hepatitis, and cirrhosis. Although fatty liver disease is 100% reversible with abstinence, alcoholic hepatitis, an advanced form of fatty liver disease, is not. Cirrhosis, an advanced form of hepatitis, is fatal. Alcohol is the major cause of acute inflammation of the pancreas. This leads to increasing dysfunction of the pancreas and poor health. With alcohol consumption, the hormone that controls water in the body is impaired, causing an increase in urinary function. Alcohol causes an increase to fluid accumulation in the lungs and can lead to chronic lung infections. 80% of alcohol is absorbed through the intestinal linings and into the bloodstream.
Like just about every single domestic violence call you went to, particularly at night, had alcohol related somehow. The victim or the suspect or both, or other people related to it were consuming. As far as violent crime, as in random crime, boy, that's a little bit harder to pin down because when you have random robberies or rapes or stuff like that, they're quite a bit fewer of them, and so it's hard for me to draw a real direct correlation. But things like misdemeanor assaults or domestic assaults or things like that we go to regularly, it's very prominent in those type of calls.
The most common alcohol-related injuries that we see in the emergency department here are either motor vehicle related, and those can range from anything from severe head injuries, to broken necks, to intra-abdominal injuries that require surgery, to broken bones. So it just depends on how fast the person was going, what they hit, and whether they had their seatbelt on, etc. But probably the highest or the most frequent injuries we see are more minor trauma related to behavior when people are drunk, meaning a lot of the stuff we see is people getting beat up when they're drunk. So a lot of facial cuts, a lot of broken hands, broken wrists, things like that from being either knocked down or pushed down or beat on.
It focuses to the central nervous system, so it does a lot of things in there as far as reaction time, judgment. Outside of the central nervous system, it lowers your inhibitions, so you may think, I'm pushing the speed limit. That's all right, though. I'm feeling fine. I'm feeling good. There's no problem here. Divided attention type things. Driving a car is a divided attention skill, and that's how a lot of the tests you see, roadside tests that you see officers giving people. A lot of those are based on divided attention things. They ask you to do more than one thing, like a physical thing and a mental thing at the same time. Driving, and the reason for that is because driving does the same thing. It asks you to physically, drive it in the road, do the speed, do the transmission, the braking, and all that stuff physically. But then mentally, you also have to do things like judging pedestrians, watching for red lights, yielding, that type of thing. So that divided attention, the way it impairs your divided attention is a huge deal for driving.
Are the physical effects of long-term alcohol abuse reversible, and at what point?
Well, that's a hard question to answer as well, just because it's not completely understood. The liver disease part of it is probably, if not reversible, at least stoppable, meaning that you can stop the progression. So if you start to show signs that your liver is being damaged by alcohol and you quit drinking, you'll at least your liver will not get any sicker. And in most cases, people will probably get better because your liver is one of the better organs at kind of regenerating. And then the brain part, again, you can stop it, but you can't reverse the brain part. And so I guess the answer is difficult, but what we can say is that when you stop, you no longer are damaging whatever you're damaging, and so the damage stops. Whether it gets reversed, it kind of depends on with your liver, yes. With the rest of your body, probably no. And you can't define a moment of damage or injury for an individual as to when they need to stop, because every individual is different, and it has to do partially with your genetic makeup, and or predominantly probably with just your genetic makeup. So some people can drink, fairly, like I was saying before, some people can drink fairly hard and not really show any physiologic effects, and other people at that same level of drinking may die from it within 10 years. But it just depends on the person.
With a BAC, blood alcohol content, of 0.02 to 0.06, reason and judgment are impaired. Dizziness, Less inhibited behavior, overestimation of skills, less sound judgment, and slow reaction time can be expected. At point 0.06 to point 1.0, reason, judgment, merit, coordination, vision, speech, and senses are impaired. Slurring of speech, blurring of vision, loss of coordination, including those needed for driving, are among symptoms. At point 1.2 to point 1.5, reason, judgment, motor coordination, vision, speech, and hearing are impaired. Double vision, drowsiness, loss of balance, and clumsiness are among the symptoms. At point 3.0 to point 4.0, all functions mentioned, plus respiration and heart rate, are impaired. At this point, a person will go into a deep sleep or coma. At point 5.0, all mentioned functions plus body temperature are affected, resulting in a deep coma or death.
The evidence that I've seen of most consumption of one person, you guys aren't going to believe this is true. There was a homicide up on the railroad tracks a couple years back where a transient had been shot in the head a number of times, and we were bringing in many transient people as possible witnesses or possible suspects in it. One of the persons that we brought in to speak with basically was incapacitated. We couldn't get him awake. Ultimately ended up calling the ambulance and having him transported. He was transported to the emergency room. They tested his blood alcohol content there, and his blood alcohol content was a .622. It's probably at least 2 times higher than anything I'd ever seen. You know, and nobody believes you when you tell them that, because everybody thinks you'd automatically be dead. But evidently this guy had consumed alcohol in large amounts for a long time. His body had built up a tolerance to it, and he was to the point where and we were told by people at ICU that he probably would have died maybe that night. It was cold in the winter. If he hadn't been brought in, maybe he would have, maybe wouldn't. I don't know, but that's a pretty severe case, I think, somebody who can really tolerate a lot of alcohol.
What are the symptoms of an alcohol overdose?
It's basically extreme drunkenness. So, where you draw the line at being very intoxicated or drunk and being overdosed is kind of arbitrary. But the people who tend to make it into the emergency department are people who can no longer walk on their own because their coordination's completely kind of erased, and people who are not able to be aroused by a police officer or by their friend, so they're basically unconscious. It's rare, fortunately, to see somebody drink enough alcohol to stop breathing. It's almost impossible to do that, but you get to a certain point where you're not able to protect your airway, meaning if you throw up, you can choke on what you've thrown up. It will go into your lungs, and we don't see that very often, but on occasion we will see that as well. But the more common presentation would just be inability to walk, talk, and be aroused or woken up.
Do you believe the drinking age of 21 is appropriate? And why?
I do. Had you asked me that when I was younger, I probably would have disagreed. And I'm not trying to say I'm the old wise man. I know everything, because I don't. But one thing that I realized was that couple extra years from when you're 15 or 16 or 17, the couple extra years to when you become 21, there's a lot to be said for some maturity that you gain at that in that span of years. Going off to college and being on your own, or not going to college, but being on your own as you're a young adult, and you go through some life experiences. You may, unfortunately, you may see a friend or relative or somebody who's affected by it, and it might change your view. But it's hard to grasp for young people. It was hard for me to understand when I was younger too. But there is something to be said for a few years of life experience under your belt. So I guess I do kind of agree with it now.
That's again kind of a difficult question because there's the reality of trying to enforce it. So if we made it any higher than that, would it really be that much would it make a difference? Because could we enforce it? How easy or how hard would it be to enforce that? The second thing is that so that's one issue, and then the second thing is, do I think somebody who's 21 is old enough to drink? And again, I think that depends on the person. I think probably the key to it is really education and kind of learning and trying to teach to de-glamorize alcohol, I guess, and not make it, to try to teach people that it's not really as great as it seems to be, or as great as the beer ads promote it to be, and to try to teach people to drink responsibly. That's probably a more effective approach than just changing the law. And so I think 21, we tend to use 21 as old enough to do most things legally in this country, so that's probably an appropriate age for people to be able to drink. So.
No one reason drives a person to alcoholism. Some people drink when they're depressed, attempting to overcome this emotion. Alcohol, although, increases depression and does nothing to correct its cause. Situational factors that increase the risk of overdrinking include drinking after work or school, especially after a hard day. Drinking after a stressful or emotional experience. Drinking from the bottle, except beer. Drinking beer from kegs or pitchers. Drinking during automatic or boring activities. Drinking with heavy drinkers. Drinking when thirsty or hungry. Drinking with those who pressure you to drink faster or more. Drinking the usual in the usual place. Many drink to be more comfortable in social situations, to be able to speak his or her mind, face heavy responsibilities, to feel attractive in spite of fears or hesitations, escape painful memories, or to build courage.
A grown adult who's drank socially for half of his life, if he's a 50-year-old person, he has an idea as to what his limitations are because he's had experience with alcohol last time. He might remember, hey, last time I did 4 shots of tequila, I puked all night, and so he has that experience. Whereas a person who, and this would be even regardless of age, if you have a 30-year-old person who has never drank an alcohol, it'd be that similar inexperience to a 15-year-old person who would never drink it because they don't know what 4 straight shots of tequila will do. I guess that's the immediate effect that I see coming to mind.
What does make one person be able to drink alcohol in moderation and another become an alcoholic?
Well, gosh, if we knew that, I'd be a rich man. But or if I knew that, I'd be a rich man. But it's probably some of it's probably environmental, meaning how you learn to drink alcohol, I guess, or the situations that you learn to drink alcohol. So if you're exposed to alcohol in a situation where it's always abused, meaning people just get drunk, then you're going to learn that behavior. So part of the behavior is learn that when you drink excessively. If you are exposed to an environment where people will drink responsibly and maybe only have 1 or 2 drinks with dinner, and that's how you think that you use alcohol, then those people are going to probably tend to not be alcoholics. It's a little bit more complicated in that there are certain people who, from the time they have their first drink, are probably going to be alcoholics. And there's something about their brain chemistry that makes them really like alcohol. It makes them want to find more alcohol. So they get kind of a different buzz or a different experience from alcohol than somebody who's not an alcohol abuser. And the other thing is there's something about an alcoholic who, most people who drink too much don't feel well, and they don't want to repeat that scenario very often. So it's hard to get up and do that every single day. But there's something about people who are prone to alcoholism where that doesn't happen to them. They don't feel bad the next day, or if they do, they feel better when they're drunk. Then the hangover's not worse than than being drunk to them. But for a non-alcoholic person, the way you feel afterwards is usually kind of prevents you from trying to push it even harder. The other thing is that that's part of it. Part of it's environmental in that if you tend to have a reason not to drink, you're probably not going to drink as much. So if you have a job and you have a family and you have people that you want to be around and you want to be sober around, you probably won't drink as much compared to somebody who doesn't have any of those things. They have no reason not to drink, let's say, so they may be more prone to drinking. But so there's multiple factors involved. Some of them environmental, how you learn to drink and how you perceive your life, and then part of it is probably genetic in the way that you metabolize alcohol and how your body responds to it. So it's multifactorial.
Friends, peer pressure. It's been, it was like that when I was younger, and from what I've seen in this profession, a lot of people, a lot of younger people will tell me that, hey, this was the place to go. You ask them, what are you doing here? Why are you out partying? It's like this was what everybody was doing.
Do you believe our youth needs to be better informed about alcohol?
The effects of it, you mean, or like the law about it?
Yeah, the effects of alcohol, what it does to people.
Yeah, I think you know where I think it might work as far as its effects and related to like driving skills and stuff like that. I think youth already know that it kind of makes you maybe a little more wild or a little bit more sociable or whatever. But the physiological effects about the way it actually affects the central nervous system, like reaction time, and maybe some of the mental effects about how it lowers inhibitions and that type of thing. That might be good information to get out, just because it would relate directly to a safety deal. If people realize that it can make it that much more dangerous to drive, or to be out there and cause an accident or be involved in an accident, or riding with a person who's intoxicated, that'd probably be good information to get out. And it seems like we're trying to get it out. There's always pamphlets that that departments are putting out and so on, so it's on its way. As far as informing them about the law, I don't know if that really has as much bite as we like to think it does, because a lot of kids think that they'll never get caught, or that it won't pertain to them, or they'll cross that bridge when it gets there. But it's good information to put out, and hopefully it'll raise an eyebrow that boy, first DUI is 24 hours in jail, period, minimum. Along with fines and that type of stuff. Maybe that'll get a couple people's attention, but it might not be quite as effective as telling them what it can do to you physically and how it can directly relate to your safety.
In what ways does alcohol impair a person's driving skills?
Well, it basically impairs kind of two things. The first is your speed of your reaction, so your reaction time. So if something runs in front of you, even you cannot hit your brakes or turn the steering wheel as fast as you could if you weren't drunk, or if you had not had even 2 glasses of whatever you're drinking. So it slows you down, basically. It slows the way you react to your environment down a little bit, or a lot, depending on how much you've had. The second thing is it impairs your judgment. So rather than being maybe a cautious, alert, paying attention to what's going on driver, you become kind of a dulled driver. Or maybe you take more chances, become a riskier driver, because you're less inhibited. So there's the straightforward, it just makes you slower in reacting, and there's the other aspect in that you're going to do things that you normally wouldn't do behind the wheel because you're uninhibited or your judgment's impaired.
Alcohol, I think it has an appropriate position, I guess, in society right now. To outlaw it would be, I think, a futile effort, like the prohibition type thing. But then again, on the far other end, to make it legal for anybody of any age or whatever to have access to, I don't think that's appropriate either. I think that it's got an appropriate place in society just by having the age restrictions, and then the restrictions, even if you are a certain age, there's certain ways you can't use alcohol. You can't strolling down the street drinking it, you can't be driving down the road drinking it, you can't become intoxicated then drive down the road or whatever. So I think it has an appropriate place, and There's nothing against people who don't drink, and nothing against people who do drink in moderation. So,
what is alcohol? I mean, what does it do to you? And what you asked me about driving is kind of what it does to everybody in every aspect of their life. Is that basically, if you're gonna drink alcohol, you have to take the responsibility of the fact that it's gonna impair your judgment. It may, and if you drink to excess, especially. So you're gonna do things that you normally wouldn't do if you were sober, and that's probably not a good way to. That's not a good reason to drink.